Hey, Earthlings, we're live on the Twinternet yet again. So welcome along. And so this is a bit of a special. It's a different day and a different, same time, but a different day. So I think this event is probably going to attract people who don't normally tune into my channel. So I thought I'd just very briefly, extremely briefly, introduce myself. My name is Roger Yates. I've been a vegan since 1979. It's involved in the 1980s and lots of single issue action groups. And currently, I'm now the co-host of the Animal Rights Show and also the organizing volunteer for the Vegan Information Project, as you can see behind me. So that's kind of me in a sense. For those who don't know me, you might see me dabbing my eyes now and again, and it's not because I'm crying. It could be on this occasion because one of the guests has said something devastatingly important and profound, but it's more likely because I was hit in the face with a police stick on an animal rights demo in the 1990s, and so my eyes stream sometimes. So if you're not used to seeing that, then that's what's going on there. And then the ones who do know me will know that one of the things that interests me the most are movement issues, things that affect the movement. And I suppose I'm kind of defensive of the movement, particularly what I call the vegan animal rights movement. And so I'm always looking for movement issues in which to comment on. And this really is what is the basis of this stream. So I initially have with me two long-term vegans. They've been around the block as I have, and so we're going to comment on the recent vegan campout issue, but also look at the wider issues that has raised. That's the main thing. And then after a while, we're going to bring in Chris Hines, who's going to introduce himself and then give us a bit of a commentary about what he's already said. So let me bring the people in. Hey. Hello, Ronnie. Hello, Tim.
Hi, Roger. Hi, Tim.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah. Ronnie, before we start, congratulations once more. Ronnie is celebrating his 50th year of veganism, so well done on that. Yeah. So what we're going to do at the beginning of this is to kind of set our stall a little bit. So Tim's going to go first, and then Ronnie. So I'm going to limit this to 5 minutes at the most. So I will cut you off if necessary. I'm going to enjoy my role as the chair, I think, for this one, because I don't usually get to do this. So Tim, in terms of what's been going on, and you've both said things on Facebook, you've both said your piece on this. What's your initial thoughts?
Well, first of all, thank you, Roger, for hosting this. Thank you, Ronnie, for joining us, and also for Chris, and of course for our listeners, so the people who are listening. I'm just going to say 3 little points, really, for the benefit of our listeners to help frame this conversation and make sure that it's productive. So this isn't really addressed so much to Ronnie. We'll, I think, talk a little bit later about some of the questions, try and answer some of them, go into a bit more detail, and then, of course, welcoming Chris for his overview and some of his input. But I would just mention 3 things. And first, as any talk we're doing at the moment about this veganism and animal rights movement, we should be crystal clear. We're in a climate crisis, and that all of these talks, we should be seeking solutions that absolutely prioritise the crisis we're in. And that demands a certain set of conditions that we have to meet. And the second thing that I would point to, particularly as we're all older people there, and we've enjoyed 50 years of the indulgence of the best lifestyle choices any being ever had on this planet, and now the next 50 years, these generations to come have got to pay that price and bear the brunt of that responsibilities. And on that point alone, we have to frame that with a climate emergency. And secondly, this is a lot of people's livelihood too. The events trade has been hammered this last 3 years. And I'm not asking for a load of small violin sympathy or nothing. It's just a fact that the events trade has really come under the cosh, as have a number of other people. But, performers, traders, contractors, the organisers, the promoters, a whole network of people, the whole thing's been crushed. And we're coming back out of that. And there's a lot of people who have really got a vested interest at stake. It's not just a movement issue. It's a real vested interest. It's the futures and livelihoods and the like. And we must recall this when we're dealing with this conversation. But thirdly, we very much want to acknowledge that, not everybody would agree at all with me. And there's some really dedicated activists and really good people who've raised some really valid points that are with me and do deserve attention. And I don't think it's a case of anybody who doesn't care about animals or doesn't care about these issues. Quite clearly people do. And we should certainly bear that in mind. But I would definitely want to show absolute solidarity and respect with hunt sabs and activists who are in the front line of, trying to close down the shooting industry and such like. And I would recognise that these aspects of the vegan movement, maybe feel like they've been sidelined a bit and not given the attention, and therefore the whole idea of having a vegan event, a shooting grounds, I can see is of real concern for a number of really good activists. There's no way I want to dismiss any of that or suggest that's not valid. But what I would like to do, and I hope that we will do with this little discussion, is perhaps, I don't know, try and frame it and find some solutions. We should seek some learning outcomes, and we should try and avoid some of this punitive, puritanical, exclusionary shit show that we see time and again in our movement. And our younger activists especially deserve better, in my book, than what we witnessed this last few weeks. And on that note, I would say, Ronnie, yeah, you've got some legitimate concerns. So.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. And Ronnie?
Yes, well, I kind of was, obviously there's been a huge controversy regarding vegan campout being situated at Stanford Hall, which is shooting estate where a degree of animal farming takes place, and I believe fishing takes place there as well. There's been a lot of controversy, a lot of arguing on social media about it. And the first thing that occurred to me, I watched this for quite some while before saying anything or asking anything. And the first thing that occurred to me, first question that occurred to me was, why on earth did the organiser choose this place for camp out? Surely he must have known that this would cause a controversy. So I'm just wondering why he did that. Was he not aware of the controversy that it would cause, or was he aware of it but decided that it was still worth it for some reason? And that's really the first question I'd like to ask about it, because if I was going to organise a vegan event and I discovered that it was going to be on a shooting estate, there's no way to do it. I'd be immediately aware of the huge controversy that would occur because of that.
Yes. Okay. Well, Ronnie, you asked that, and I think you actually commented on my Facebook page. You said literally, surely the organiser would have seen this coming. He would have seen this controversy. So that's a valid point. Well, that's a valid point. Just
to clarify, though, are we talking about the new event or the old event?
This new one. This one coming up next month.
Okay.
One coming up next month, and Jordan, the organiser, went to a number of venues, and he did select this one, and he obviously put a lot of effort into this, and then he did ask his visitors, he polled his visitors, the people who come to his event, his clients, as it were, what their preference was. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs, and I don't think that's necessarily that relevant, but what I would say is, first of all, the organiser did do some due diligence. He did look at a number of places, and we should take into account there's a lot of different things. I mean, first of all, councils are different. So can you get a license to do an event of this nature? Are the police going to grant you this? What's the track record for local councils? This makes a huge difference. Is the health and safety suitable? You know, are we going to have huge bills for some kind of access for important services? All sorts of considerations to be taken into account. Proximity for visitors and such like. You can imagine that there's a whole load to take into account. But to answer your question about, well, would you have seen this coming? Let's frame this by looking back at other events, because it's a valid question. But I would say, well, how would you know? So I'm going to ask you, Ronnie, to say, well, look, given that it's a fact that last year a big event was held on a campsite that had fishing, nothing was said. It's also a fact that another event that was cancelled this year was going to be held on somewhere that was later in the year going to be used as a turkey farm. It's also a fact that a well-known grassroots vegan campaigning group has been paying a dairy farmer for 30 years now to trade on their farm. And it's also without a murmur ever. And it's also clear that our own event at Olympia, which you've been to, Ronnie, and indeed the very month after you appeared at our show at Olympia, there was the Horse of the Year show there. So why? My question would be, well, if you're so insistent that young Jordan would have seen this coming, which in retrospect may be valid, I'm sure he would next time, but how would he have known? What's your criteria? If you're okay with the fishing, and you're okay with the Horse of the Year show, and you're okay with the dairy farmer, and you're okay with, I mean, we had Veg Festival and we had a grill stock on the week after. I mean, is that, you're okay with all of this? Nobody's ever made, ever. So how is it? How is it?
Well, Tim, if I could jump in, I'm not sure that Ronnie would say.
Jordan knows
this is part of the first issue. Is there such a thing as a vegan event? So Ronnie, is there going to be, however long this guy searched for it, is he ever going to find a vegan event? And is there such a thing? That's our first question. And just as a little rider, Ronnie, was that you called it a shooting estate. He calls it a showground. So
I understand it's a place, whatever anyone wants to call it. I understand it's a place where pheasant shooting takes place, where indeed it took place. It took place fairly recently, I think, there, according to signs that I've seen photographs of. But obviously, we live in a society that's steeped in the oppression of other animals. And so it would be very difficult, I say, to find somewhere that was absolutely perfect to stage an event. But because we can't find somewhere perfect, is that a reason to not try to find the least imperfect of places? To me, it's rather like you have a choice between eating a McPlant burger in McDonald's or going into a local, maybe family-run cafe to consume their vegan option. You have that choice. Now, which is the ethical choice of the two? Neither are perfect, but which would be the ethical choice? I know what my choice would be in that. And I think, I think this is a similar question. And of course, we had a similar type of dispute over McDonald's and the plant burger and whether vegans should go into McDonald's now that they're selling a plant-based burger, for instance. I think there's parallels to be drawn between these two things. But nevertheless, that kind of despite the fact that it may well be the case that
so you're saying that there isn't a vegan event, but there's some better than this one. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that we don't live in a perfect world. So there's probably nowhere that's kind of perfect in a sense that could well be argued.
Well, it's interesting because this is what the organizer says.
Yes,
well, what's the criteria? What's the criteria? How do you assess that's better or worse? How is Jordan the organizer with all the other things going on? And it's not like walking into McDonald's and trying to say, get what you're trying to say. It's a lot more complicated than that. This is a huge event with 15,000 people. Very, very much a lot of considerations. But given that, you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing, but I am asking, I'm going to pin you down here, Ronnie, and ask you to answer quite clearly, because you were very clear about what you said to Jordan. You should have seen this coming. What's his criteria? Now, I'm going to repeat, given the history that none of these other events have ever caused, nobody's ever raised it. How, on what grounds? Is it because, maybe I can answer that, is it because we consider shooting and hunting to be somehow worse than, killing animals for food? Because we recognize that people perhaps are just, brought up to eat animals for food. We all did this. But the idea that somebody can go out and shoot and hunt for pleasure or entertainment is just, it's nauseous. It's just abhorrent in a way that perhaps is more visceral and perhaps just gets a backup more than I don't know, turkey farming or fishing or horse of the year show. Maybe we just don't get so animated. I don't know. Is that it, or is there more to it? What's the criteria? What would you advise to be okay for Jordan, given that he won't get a vegan venue, if that's a given?
I think the fact that somewhere's not perfect. I mean, I don't know the situation. All we know is what he's saying. All we know is what he's saying about what he did. We don't, there's no way of telling, how much of that is true or not true.
Well, I can tell you it is, sir, but no, don't doubt me. But there you go. I know. I've got my ear to the ground. That if you
okay,
that's disrespectful to you that this is true. So answer the question about the criteria. Don't wriggle out. How do you grade it? Is it okay to have a fishing one next year or not?
I don't think it's okay.
But how do we grade it? Are you saying that it'd be better to have one on a farm or on a fishing?
Would you say?
No, I'm asking you.
Would anyone?
Let him answer, Tim.
Yeah. Would anyone say that everywhere's equal in terms of the oppression of other animals? That every venue is equal, right?
Yes.
That no matter what they do there, as long as it involves like some oppression of animals, that therefore they're all equal. Well, that kind of is that isn't the case, is it? And that's not the case in terms of the vegan ethic. I mean, the vegan ethic, the definition of veganism, states that we should, I would say, do our reasonable best to avoid contributing to the oppression of other animals, to avoid contributing to the exploitation of other animals in really everything we do, not just in terms of our consumption of food, but in everything we do. We should do our reasonable best, as far as possible and practicable, to avoid involvement in the oppression and exploitation of other animals. Now, that accepts that it's not possible to be perfect, but it does say that we should do our best, or at least our reasonable best, to not involve ourselves in that. And my question really is, was that what really happened with this choice of venue? It's not whether about that, there being a perfect place. It's about us doing our best to minimise our contribution to the oppression of other animals. And was that really the case with this choice of venue? That's the question. That's
Okay,
and why does VFest get a pass?
Tim. Ronnie, you're saying there's criteria, so we're asking what it is.
I'm not hanging anyone out to dry.
You are. No, you are.
I've
it's
only
disgraceful what you did.
I've only asked a
No,
question.
the comments on there were disgraceful. And you fueled that. They were disgraced.
No.
Hey, folks, we're wanting to have
this controversy was going on long before I asked those questions. Right? This controversy was going on for a long time. And I felt that certain questions needed to be asked, and I asked them. Right? Now, the comments that people make are their own comments. They're not my comments. Right? I think it's a pity that this has become heated because we don't solve anything through that. That's not something I'm involved in. I can't control what comments people put on a post that I make. Nobody can do that unless you go through and delete everything.
That's nonsense. Of course you can.
Are you suggesting that I delete every single comment that people have?
No, what you do is you monitor it. And I'll tell you what you do, because I do it all the time. And it's the same thing that James Aspig didn't do. And he fueled a load of anti-Semitic comments. And it's the same thing that other people have done in the animal rights movement. When you post on your Facebook page, you take responsibility for those comments. If you see racist comments, you delete them, you own them. If you see derogatory comments, you delete them, you own them, you challenge them. You don't just let people trash other activists. And that's what you did, Ronnie Lee.
People are trashing other activists anyway, all over Facebook on this. People are arguing all over Facebook on this, which is why I felt that some reasonable questions needed to be asked about this event. And this is discussing this particular event. And the question is, there's been a controversy over this event because of the venue that was chosen. And my question was, could a venue that was, shall we say, less unethical than this could have been chosen? Could that have been chosen?
That's fair enough. But what are your ethics? What are your ethics? You're not answering the question. You're not giving guidance to people half your age. You're digging them out. You're on their case and you're fueling all these comments, but you're not offering a solution. What's your guidance? Answer the question, please, sir.
We already have. Well, it sounds like we're on that programme on the telly now, doesn't it?
Come on.
Answer the question. Right. Okay. We already have that.
I said it.
We already have
said it would be a waste of time. Just answer it.
Look, let's keep a lid on this, people. So
maybe
what's criteria?
Let Ronnie answer the question.
Okay. Now, we already have the guidelines in the definition of veganism, which I think all vegans should follow, and that is we do our best to avoid the oppression of other animals. And my question really is that what happened in the choice of this venue? What other people are doing at other venues, right? How is that?
It's going around in circles here.
No, how is it relevant to this? This was a discussion about, was this the best possible venue that reasonably could have been chosen for camp out?
But right. What is your reasonable? What's your criteria? How do you choose what's reasonable? It's not vegan. We get
was it the venue? No, was it the venue that was okay? If we're saying that no venue, no. Tim, can you just let me talk?
No. We're waiting.
Okay, right. If we're going to choose a venue for an event, for a vegan event, right? It's part of the vegan ethic, not just for the choice of a vegan event, but for anything that we as vegans do. Anything that we as vegans do. Everything I do in my life, everything you do in your life, in terms of where we go, what we consume, everything, right? It's part of the vegan ethic that we do our utmost or do our best to try to minimise the oppression of other animals that contributes to. And my simple question was that the case with this event?
Yes, the answer is yes, it did. Now, to answer your question, yes. Right. Ronnie,
you see
how do you rate these venues?
You say, well, are you saying that every single...
You see, he won't answer the question, Roger. He just keeps asking questions. I want to know your criteria. You keep saying that these venues were all about not oppression for it, but you're saying that really what you're saying is, I'll answer for you. What you're saying is that shooting and hunting are worse in your book than fishing and horse riding. That's why you haven't.
That is. Hang on a minute, Tim. That is one issue that we need to talk about because I did see that quite a lot of people were suggesting that was the case, and so it was a kind of a single issue thing was kind of. So in terms of what Tim said before, that seemed to be reflected in some of the comments. And that didn't seem to make much sense to me in the sense that why because this particular activity was blood sports, that was worse than if they're serving ham sandwiches or something.
I mean, I don't go along with that, and that's not my
don't know. And yet Jordan's man to know. He should have known, but you don't know. No, right. That's really useful. Good leadership, General.
Keep a lid on it, Tim.
Well, I mean, honestly, because it's people's livelihoods.
I know that, but
you don't even know what it's all about.
You've got to let Ronnie talk, Tim.
Well, all right. It makes sense, and stop repeating yourself and answer.
I'm not suggesting what Jordan knew or what he didn't know. I was just asking a question, right? I've asked questions about this that I think should have answers to. You've answered one of them. You seem to kind of know all the workings of Jordan's mind and the fact that this was the least unethical venue he could have chosen, right? Now, if you do know the workings of his mind, I can't dispute that. But it's still a valid question to ask.
I do not know the workings of Jordan's mind. Do not insult me like that, please, Ronnie.
Well, how is it an insult, Tim? How was that an insult?
Look, I've told you that Jordan has told a number of people, including Roger, that he's done his best here, and I get that. Maybe he's fallen short. I get that, but I'm still asking you to just give us the criteria by which you judge this. Now, Roger's indicated that a number of comments will say, well, it's down to a welfare issue, that people focus on the suffering of these unfortunate animals that are caught up in shooting and hunting, but somehow that is different from the use of animals, which is the abolitionist baseline that all animals have moral value, and that we should be focusing on abolishing the use of all animals, and although the suffering and the treatment and the welfare of animals is, of course, really important, we shouldn't throw a whole vegan event under the bus and try and get it cancelled and destroyed and out of business, along with all the benefits that go with it, on a point of principle, because somehow somebody decides that the suffering of these animals is more important than the use of these animals over here. And that's what we're trying to get to, is there's a lack of consistency. And when you say, as you do, and you tell Jordan that he should have known, and me, that we should have known, but you don't offer any clue as to how we should have known, and you won't answer that question. And I know why, because you can't. And neither can any of us, because it would then say, oh, actually, we rate these animals as more important than those. And that's a speciesist view, and none of us are going to do that on telly or whatever it is, because that's not what we mean. But we do get it. And I will say that I would acknowledge that the people who are up in arms about this, it's because I think the shooting and the hunting aspects of the movement have been degraded. They have been ignored. They have not been included in this whole sweep of vegan consumerism, which has swept the board and just kind of whole venture.
That's a good point, Tim. That's a good point. Let Ronnie respond to that. Okay. And then I want to move it on a little bit, okay? So
I think this place is also involved in animal farming as well. It's not just shooting, and certainly according to the organiser, fishing as well. So there's several forms of the oppression of other animals going on there. But what I've done is ask questions. I haven't accused anyone of anything. I've asked questions. I've said these are the questions really that need to be explored in relation to this event. And that isn't asking questions, isn't accusing people.
No, but when you get the answers, Ronnie, which I've given you a number of times, and I gave you one today, and you did it again, you ignored it. You said, oh, I've got concerns. And so I gave you the figures and you ignored it. So you give it all this, oh, I asked these questions. What you're doing, you're undermining the confidence of good activists. And you're destructive, and you don't own when you get it wrong. You just ignore us. It's so exhausting, and I'm telling you now, I've had enough of it. Really, you should be told.
We can tell, Tim, but you know, let's keep a lid on this. Come on.
So do a lot of other people. You snipe away, and then we put you right, and then you scuttle off and hide again.
Tim, let's keep a lid on this, please.
It's true. I'm only being honest. You know that. You know that. Time and again. So why don't you just answer?
Tim,
you ask the questions, but you don't like the answers.
Are we not entitled? It isn't a question whether I like the answers or not. What I'm saying is these are the questions that need to be answered. These are the important questions that need to be answered in relation to this event. Right, and I'm entitled to have concerns about things, as are all of us, and all of us are entitled to answer reasonable questions about things. Are we not allowed, any of us, to question anything? Are none of us allowed?
Of course you are, but you should acknowledge the answers, Ronnie, and you don't. And when people put it back on you, you don't. You derail and you hide, and that is not good leadership. And I would ask you to reconsider.
Okay, folks. I'm in danger of losing my image
let's get your pal in then, and I'll shut up.
Person here.
Get your pal in and I'll shut up, Roger, because you can see I'm disappointed with Ronnie Lee. It's not answering.
I know, Tim. Let's move on. Let's move on from point one. Okay, let's move on. Because Ronnie, let's try to move towards solutions. And, you know, one solution from you is to do with size. So I think that'd be an interesting one. First of all, I want to show you something that both of you, I think, will probably be able to agree with. The primary purpose of any vegan event, whether it's a camp out or a vegan fair, should be to educate non-vegans to become vegan and to help encourage vegans to get involved with outreach. So I'm sure... Sorry?
Who said that?
Ronnie.
Ronnie said, "Oh, right, that's his view, is it? Yeah, right, okay. So that's just all vegan events, is it? That's just not true, Ronnie. That's your view about a vegan, not any vegan event.
I thought you'd agree on this, Tim.
It's not. No, you've got a load of other things going on. So this is just like, Ronnie Lee spouting off again. But if you want to hear the answers, of course not. You won't listen.
But aren't I entitled to have that view?
Well, it's not. It's a purpose of your vegan event. It's not my vegan event.
No,
You don't own my vegan event. You don't get to tell me how I run or do my vegan event or what my purpose is. That's not for you to say. You say it for your work, not for mine or for Jordan's or no one else.
Okay, Tim. I was suggesting, and I was obviously wrong on this. I was going to suggest that this was going to be something that you could both agree with. The contentious bit, is the second bit.
Well, this is wrong. No, I pointed out to Ronnie Lee before, and he's made this point several times. He won't listen to the answer. He said that VegFest doesn't attract people who are not vegan because it's too expensive. And I've pointed him to the figures which completely disprove that. And I'm not saying these figures are statistically peer reviewed, but they're pretty consistent over 5 years with a good sample size with the same questions. And time and again, they're pointing to 2,000 or 3,000 non-vegans coming to our event, which is more than any other event in the country. And although that is not the prime purpose of the event, and that's for me.
Okay, Tim. Okay.
Even then, we still get fulfilling that purpose, and you're wrong.
Tim,
you're wrong.
Okay, you've done the advert.
You won't accept it.
Now,
you just won't have it. Will you, Ron?
Tim,
you won't have it.
Don't have a seizure, mate.
We've said it for years.
Don't take the piss if you don't have a seizure or a heart.
Don't take the piss, pal, out of my health, ever. All right? Don't fucking take the piss.
I'm just saying you need
to take the piss.
I'm going to fucking close this down if you're not careful.
Well, don't go on about having seizures then, Ronnie. Just answer the question again.
I'm going to have a fucking seizure. Now listen.
Can I just say?
Let's try in terms of the movement to think about this issue of size. This is your position, Ronnie, right? That size is...
let's kind of first of all talk about this in a broader aspect. Something I'm very concerned about in terms of our movement is that most events that promote veganism, for instance, most vegan outreach events, for instance, and indeed most vegan fairs, tend to take place in big cities, in the centre of big cities, and that's great. I mean, it's great that those forms of outreach do take place. But we have, vast areas of kind of wasteland, deserts in this country, probably all over the world, where no outreach, no vegan education takes place. There's very little happens in smaller cities, in the suburbs of big cities, and in towns, for instance. The county that I live in, we've got, I think, seven different towns, 7 or 8 different towns, and one city. In most of those, there's no outreach at all, right? And so we're missing out on educating a huge number of people about veganism and encouraging them to go vegan. We're failing to do that because stuff doesn't happen in those areas because the focus tends to be all on the big cities.
Okay. So Ronnie, let me jump in there because I understand. I think people get the size point that you're making, and you want grassroots stuff everywhere and all the time, and we know that position. Tim's position, and it is backed up with evidence and also anecdotal evidence, is that the big events do still attract non-vegans. So the movement question I want you to address is, can't these live together and almost like mutually reinforce each other? And so people go to the big events and get encouraged to organize their own little events. And the people at the little events have a great time doing that. And then every now and again, they go to a big one for the kind of social psychology of it.
Well, let me jump in there, Roger, and tell you a couple of facts. First of all, when Kevin White came to VegFest in 2005, I think, or 2006, he got the inspiration, and he's credited VegFest with this, to go off and do all his own events. And it's Kevin White who's done some of those phenomenal events and was doing a whole heap of vegan events, about really small ones, in the very areas that Ronnie's talking about before lockdown shut it down. At a time when there was over 300 regional events, many of them not in cities. So again, Ronnie, that's something that, your concerns are not backed up by the evidence.
The difference between the two of you there maybe is the words. Tim is saying regional, you're saying local, Ronnie.
Well, I'm also adding, Roger, let me get this point in, because there's also another one, and that's the guy who done the Fireplace events. The same thing. He came to a big event, he got the inspiration to come and do all these other little events. So the history of this movement bears out. Actually, a lot of these little events, certainly Viva...
Those events are still in cities.
Comes out, well, they're going all over the place. They're going also... And the reason they tend to be in cities is because these things do have to pay for themselves. They have to attract enough people, then they have to get still holders.
Okay, so that's your position.
It might not work in the village town hall.
Are you saying, Tim, that the local ones are not viable then? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe not. But what I'm saying is that there's lots and lots of people doing it. Before lockdown, we had over 300, so you've got to assume that there were quite a few that were viable. And there was a lot of firms doing it. And now we've lost a lot of that. And when you've got some of our small vegan independent traders who've relied on this, absolutely, and now it's gone, and there's some of us busting our whatevers to try and bring it back, and that's just not about me, but a whole community of people are trying to do this. And what are we getting? We've had enough. We've had COVID. We've had Brexit.
Let's not go back to point.
We've had our firms downsized.
Tim, I'm going to mute you for a second. Let's not go back to point one. I want to continue this.
He's still going on.
Ronnie. In terms of what Tim has just said, did you register that growth in regional and local things before lockdown, and was that getting to what you wanted?
Well, I think there's kind of two things here. I mean, we've got the vegan fairs, and it's true that some have taken place in smaller places, but they tend normally to be in cities. And obviously, in the city, you've got a wider catchment area where you can attract more people. But I think even in really quite a small town, if you do enough promotional work, and I think one of the problems with vegan fairs, and I'm not suggesting that this in any way applies to Tim or Tim's events, is that the promotion isn't good. The promotion isn't good, and it looks like with
Jesus Christ,
right? In terms of the door dropping of leaflets in the local area to promote the festival, that's vitally important. That's vitally. We had a vegan fair locally organised by Kevin White. It was on a Sunday when the town is normally dead. We door dropped 10,000 leaflets locally to promote that festival, and there was a bumper attendance. And in fact, according to
it's going to waffle on forever.
Survey.
Ronnie, so
come to the point, Ronnie.
This is very difficult, isn't it, Roger?
Yeah, listen, Ronnie. Okay, so I think what you're saying there is that the different size of the events is going to take a different type of advertising stuff. Is that what you're saying?
I think
they don't have the budget to do it. What's the workforce with the support? Instead of you dissing them all, go and support them all.
Well, in fact, that's what I very often did in relation to Kevin White. I used to organise distribution of leaflets, and Kevin was very good at that. Yeah, you see, one of the problems in some areas with vegan fairs is they're not well enough promoted, and if they're not well enough promoted, two things happen. First of all, you don't get the non-vegans, because the non-vegans are going to come from the local area primarily.
Can we move on, Roger? I don't want to hear, rip apart our little events. Can we move on at Sunny Solutions Based? Can we bring in Chris? Get on with this. Solutions Based. So listen to Ronnie telling us how shit our events are.
Sorry, have I said anything?
Oh, yeah, right. Whatever, mate. You snipe away. Bring in Chris. Let's change the movie, Roger. Come on, move this along, please.
Have I said anything about any event being shit? I don't think I said that, did I, Roger?
Whatever, mate. You lost me a while back. I don't see any productive, and I warned Roger about this. I said you wouldn't listen. So let's move on, Roger, before we lose.
Let me move on. Ronnie, one question I want to ask you, because you know that I support your position about the best thing for the movement would be the growth and the expansion of the grassroots. And this line that you have, there's two lines that you have, which is that you want grassroots events all the time and everywhere, and also you've got that tripartite thing about go vegan, become an activist, and the activist can become an organizer. So what I want to do to challenge your position a little bit, Ronnie, is to what extent, given what we know about the passive nature of things at the moment, where are these organizers going to come from? And I'm wondering about whether you're suggesting that if this model of, say, local, regional, and national came to be where it's all mutually beneficial, then everything will be encouraging towards organizing. Is that what you're saying?
I think my main issue is the lack of local events, right? If there are national and regional events as well, then fine. But the main issue I have is that we don't have enough vegan outreach everywhere.
What's the solution? What solution are you putting forward? It's a valid point. Let's get to a solution.
Well,
what's your solutions? You hear your point? What's your solutions?
Let him answer, Tim.
One of the things I've been saying, right, is that we obviously need people to kind of step up the notch. Obviously we want non-vegans to go vegan. We want vegans to become activists. And the most important thing is that we need vegan activists to become organisers. And we need vegan activists to become organisers, I would say, in their own local areas where they live. And the situation we have at the moment with vegan outreach, it mainly takes place in the central big cities, and people from all around go to that outreach and take part in it. And what my suggestion is to say to those people, look, think about, maybe as well as doing that, think about, instead of becoming just a participant, to become an organizer an actual organizer of outreach, someone who instigates outreach in your own local area.
Okay, yeah.
What I'm saying is that,
Well, that's fair enough. But let me just say to you, let me ask you, because time's short, that's a very good thing, and I concur with that. We want to encourage activists, especially younger activists. I'm not sure the recent vegan camp-out trashing is very encouraging for young organisers. I mean, if I was a young organiser, I'd give the vegan scene a big miss right now. I wouldn't dare dream of organising anything within the vegan scene. I wouldn't want to be turned upon like that and ravished and trashed and have hate campaigns and smear campaigns, have my mental health questions, and be absolutely bombarded by people 3 times my age hanging me out to dry, mocking me with memes and allowing all sorts of comments to be made, including
you've made those points.
On that point, Roger, to come back to that point, what I'd like to ask Ronnie is, okay, but you said now, would you like to see the end of Vegan Camp Out and my event? We're the 2 biggest events. Would you genuinely say, actually, you know what, Tim? I think the big events are more trouble than they're worth. I think you should disband them. Or do you think that we should actually we should keep building these big events And obviously we want the little events and the regional events. We know all that. We've got a track record of that. Do you genuinely deep down want to see these big events continue and thrive within the vegan movement? Or are you really saying, and I'm happy, and I know...
Okay, we get the question, Tim. So, Ronnie,
are you happy?
What's the answer?
Are you happy? Are you happy? Shut up, Roger. Are you happy to see an end to these events? Over to you, Ronnie.
My concern isn't really in relation to the large events. My concern is in relation to the lack of in more localised action.
But you're not opposed to the large events, Ronnie?
No, I'm not.
No. Okay, so that's your answer then.
You have said a solution. You said the opposite. You said one solution would be to disband this event. You said that about my event before.
No, I haven't. I haven't said
that. You said it on there. It's on there. You said it in your questions. You said, well, maybe we should disband this event and make it lots of little smaller ones. That's what you said, didn't you?
I asked.
It's on the question. Get it up, Roger. It's on the bottom of your question.
Bring up the question, Roger.
Am I wrong? Do I need to withdraw that? Did I get that wrong?
Well, hang on, it'll take me a couple of minutes. But Chris, welcome. Please save this.
Right, hopefully, I've got some details here which I think might bring some clarity to some stuff. So, just so if people don't know who I am, I've been an animal rights activist for 7 years. I'm a filmmaker. We'll get into this because I know we're stuck on time. I don't want to do a big intro about me. But when I saw all this controversy happen, the first thing I did is I got Jordan on the phone for 2 hours and I grilled him about every single detail to find out exactly what was going on, so I would have a good understanding of why people were feeling like they are. So the first thing I'd like to address first is Ronnie's initial question of why they chose that venue, because I think it is a valid question that a lot of people are asking, and I think it deserves to be clarified. So what it was, after the last event, which was held at a showground, which is obviously owned by an agricultural organisation, people weren't too happy about that because money was going directly to animal agriculture. So the camp out set out to look for a new venue which would have less attachments. So they did a poll originally to find out, basically it came down to 3 options. They had a choice of agricultural land, farmland, or estates. They're generally the only kind of land you can get that can hold that many people. When we're looking at 80 to 90 acres, 15,000 people, generally, those are the 3 options that you have. There may be other options out there, but they're very few and far between. A lot of them don't want to host events like this, and Vegan Camp Out have approached a number of these places before obviously going to these places. So they definitely did put the effort in there. From the response they got and from speaking to people, they decided that estates was the best option because some estates don't actually put on the shooting and other events themselves. They're actually privately run, which was the situation with Stanford Hall. The shooting was privately run by local farmers, so they actually pay the estate to do the shooting. The community farm is also private, so they pay the estate. The estate also agreed to ban fox hunting, which was another reason they chose to use that venue. Even though, and there are some rumours that apparently the owners are members of the Pitchley Hunt, which they outright deny. They say that's only because of historical hunting on the property. They're not actually members of the hunt whatsoever. So the reason they chose that venue, and the fishing actually looks to be private as well. So the reason they chose that venue is because in their eyes, the funds from Vegan Camp Out would not go to fund any of the unethical activities around it, unlike the previous venue where it would go directly. So in their eyes, they were choosing what they thought, and they still think to this day from what they spoke to the estate, that was the most ethical venue they could find due to the root of the money, so to speak. It wouldn't fund
Chris,
those.
Chris, can I just jump in here?
Yeah, of course.
Just on that point you're making there, because one of the things that came up when Jordan appeared on a recent live was the possibility of, and Ronnie's got issues with this again size-wise, but the possibility of buying land to create a vegan space all year round.
It's a nice thought.
None of these issues would.
Yeah, it's a nice thought, but it's not financially viable. It's not financially viable. If you think about, you're going to be buying a big space of land that's going to be used for one weekend a year. It's going to cost a fortune to do that. It would be great if that could happen, but financially, it's just unrealistic.
Have you any idea, ballpark, about what finances are used? I mean, if there's some person giving millions to AV, why can't some person give millions?
I mean, if someone could give millions to them, it'd be a different story. But from what I understand, they don't have a big donor or anything at all like that. Vegan Camp Out is Vegan Camp Out as a business, and they can only afford what they can afford. Obviously, we're looking at a big
even a crowd. I mean, see, if it's such a great idea in the sense that we could have a vegan space which is always vegan, and it's available all year round for all kinds of things. You know, you can have bloody football matches or whatever between vegans, whatever, but you can, and all that. I mean, maybe a crowdfunder would work because it's such a brilliant idea, isn't it? I mean,
doesn't it be itself, Roger? You're talking a huge business enterprise with a lot of investment business, but you don't just click your fingers, and you're going to have people who want to. Jordan runs a summer camp.
Are you accusing me of naivety now, Tim?
Suggestions. I know they sound great, but they're just pie in the sky. You don't stop to think about scaling up a business to do that.
I imagine when you first came up with the idea of VegFest, somebody probably thought it was pie in the sky.
It would be helpful if people actually with some business acumen tailored these ideas to something that was actually kind of viable instead of coming out with all of these.
I tell you what just needs to be said to move on from that point is ultimately that would be the dream if we could do that. But ultimately that's not something just for Vegan Camp Out. That's as a movement. We would all need to come together to be able to do that.
Yeah, as a movement,
and we can't put that on Vegan Camp Out.
No.
You need to.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting the movement.
Who's going to do all that?
Our movement is relatively rich, isn't it? I mean, if the movement wanted to do it, we could, couldn't we?
Well, why doesn't would you, Roger? Would you sacrifice the £2 million a year Go Vegan World billboard spend to buy a bit of land? Because I tell you what, £2 million.
I can't sacrifice.
No, exactly. But who would manage that too? So but would you support that? Would you say to Go Vegan World, hey, why don't you donate 1 year's billboards that go to all the?
I might do that. I might do that.
Yeah. That would be a really good idea. But then you need to employ somebody who's going to run all that as a business and have a whole business letting it out, managing it out.
Okay, Tim, if you're saying it's out of the question, then that's the answer.
Not without a lot of work. It's not out of the question, but it's not possible.
Well, you said it was about 5 minutes ago.
No, it's not for Chris. Chris said it's out of the question for Jordan as a two-man.
I wasn't talking about Jordan doing it. I was talking about the movement.
Well, fair enough. But whoever this movement is, I don't know who you're on about, but we're talking about the Vegan Camp Out. Chris was saying, we're looking for solutions that are valid, for the camp out, not pie in the sky ones.
Ronnie wants to pitch in something there. Let's
okay, Chris, let's go back to what you were initially saying.
Ronnie just wanted to say a quick thing. I want to give Ronnie a chance to speak as well.
That where we do have what you might call ethical space is on animal sanctuaries, on farmed animal sanctuaries. We have now an increasing number of farmed animal sanctuaries in this country that are run by vegans and often actually promote veganism. And they have space where a camp out could take place. Not a huge camp out with many thousands of people.
Yeah, no, I agree. There are smaller areas.
Many of them could host, and there is one, at least one, going to already happen this year. And the advantage of those type of events is that people don't have to travel far to them. It'll be local people going to them. So in terms of, Tim quite rightly talked about the climate crisis, and we need to focus on that. And a contribution to the climate crisis is caused by transport. People don't have to travel so far. They don't have to, use their cars to go a long distance to an event. Then that's obviously better for the climate.
Yeah, I can kind of pitch in it because while I agree that small festivals, have their advantages, like things like Vegan Camp Out also have huge advantages, especially in the normalization of animal rights and veganism in popular culture. It's something more that we can be alongside the Reading festivals, the Download festivals, the other big festivals, and people are like, there's a vegan version of this for me where they can go and be with thousands of other people that have the same beliefs and everything that they do. And I think there's power in that. Plus the amount of money that is, the different stall owners, the charities and the sanctuaries that are there is invaluable to them every year. They, you know, a lot of them rely on those funds, quite heavily. And I think, you know, just generally, it just, you know, it establishes, you know, ultimately we want veganism to seem normal, don't we? That's what we want. We want veganism to be normal. And I think having this big event with these big acts and stuff, which warrant having a big space by having these big musicians and stuff like that, it does bring that normality to veganism to make people think, oh, well, it's not so much a fringe movement anymore. It's something I can be involved in and I can get involved and I can go with my friends and enjoy this music, which I love. You see where I'm coming from?
That, Chris. Well, absolutely. And I would say that Jordan is under the most intense pressure here to deliver this. The idea that somehow it's all kind of easy and going on, when you take on events of this size, you take on a huge responsibility. You know, for starters, you're looking at suddenly manslaughter charge for corporate manslaughter. If somebody dies at your event, you are responsible for so much, not just the finances, but everything else. And we've subjected our best young vegan organizer to the most humiliating and disgusting campaign. And I'm not seeing any solutions here.
I mean, I have to I have to agree with Tim on this point.
You're putting forward a solid case, and Ronnie, you know, I'll say, and Roger to a degree, you know, I'm asking for solidarity here. That we need solidarity. I know we've got differences, I know that, but we have to get solutions based. And I know I've been shouting at this because I think you need to be, because what I've seen you displaying is not appropriate for this movement. The young people, especially up and coming people, need better guidance.
Yeah, Tim, if I could interrupt you for a second, because I think
it's experience between us.
Yeah, Tim, I think I can back you up for what you're saying.
Better version.
Just say my guidance for younger people who are vegan.
Solidarity.
What I would say to younger people who are vegan, it's great that you're vegan, but don't forget, you know, we live in a world where the oppression of other animals by the human species is horrendous. There are 50,000 animals every second slaughtered for food, and that situation is actually getting worse. The growth of the vegan movement has stopped it from getting as bad as it could be, but it is still increasing. We live in a world that's a nightmare for other animals because of our species. The only way we're going to end that is to educate as many people as possible to go vegan. And there's two reasons why that works. First of all, the impact those people will make through their life choices as consumers. And secondly, the political impact they'll make, change the mindset of people, change the way they vote. We're going to have more vegan politicians, more of those elected to Parliament, and we can actually get some laws passed that will properly protect animals and promote veganism. So that is why it's so important that we have as much outreach as possible going on. Okay. And whatever the opinion of young people who are vegan, have just become vegan, is regarding the camp out issue, I think what I'm saying is of overriding importance, that it's kind of more important than all this. And I would say, please get involved in outreach, get involved in educating other people to go vegan. It can be as simple as putting leaflets through people's letterboxes in your own area, holding a small information stall. It doesn't have to be anything big and complicated. You know, there are people all around you that need to be educated. And I think this is the most important message we need to give to young people of today. A lot of us now are getting older. We may not have that long left. We fought all our lives for animal liberation. We want to see it happen, maybe not in our own lifetime, but hopefully in the lifetimes of the younger people that are following us.
Yeah.
But that is more important than any of this. Right, okay, so there's this dispute over the camp out and all that and everything. But the overriding issue is that far, far more vegans, only a tiny percentage of vegans are involved in outreach, right? And that is really a tragedy, you know, because unless lots more of us become involved in it, we're not going to change things.
So let's get support in camp out.
Yeah,
Campout inspires more activists.
Can I add something?
Get behind solidarity with
I want to try and add something.
Yeah,
I'm trying to find my gap.
And let's get on it. You've got a timetable, get on it. Because honestly,
we're short of time. Chris, you say what you want to say.
Yeah, let me see if I can get in there. Like, Ronnie, obviously I agree with you. We need outreach everywhere. Everyone needs to do it. I don't think anyone will ever dispute that. I think something we do need to remember, though, is that, you know, Vegan Camp Out, as far as they're concerned, is also a form of activism. And they have 2 days full of activism workshops. You know, we've had people like yourself there, Ronnie, educating people, all that kind of stuff. Super, super important. One thing I would like to echo, though, and it may also make people realize why Tim is so passionate about this, the hate campaign towards Jordan especially has been particularly disgusting. There has been so much hate, so much vile comments and stuff that's gone on. It has been unreal. There is criticizing a festival, and then there's personal attacks and going too far. And I do feel that Vegan Camp has gone too far. We're talking about, you know, this is a family-run thing. There's also, you know, Jordan's mum's involved. You know, I don't know how involved she is, but Jordan's sister's a co-organizer. Like, their mental health and everything does have to be put into perspective when we are giving so much hate towards them. And I would like people to just hopefully listen to some of the things that have been said and hopefully realize that they did try and do the best they could and just not hold them to such a high standard, which is an impossible thing to do, because whether you like Jordan or not, because I know that some of you don't or you do, that doesn't matter. We're all people in the end. We're meant to be compassionate humans, you know, compassionate to animals and humans. I thought that was the whole reason that we're vegan in the first place. And I'd like to see a bit more understanding. Yeah. And if people have problems, the best thing you can do is help. Try and find another venue they can use for another time. Give some constructive criticism. Rinsing people on the internet is not helping. It's really not. And I really wanted to bring that up because I think it's
in relation to that, Chris.
Sure.
In terms of the live stream that Jordan was on recently, he did actually say that a lot of people have tried to do exactly what you just said that they could to help, and that also the ones who are really having a go, as it were, are a fairly vociferous but small group. He always puts it at 30 to 50 individuals, but but in terms of the larger group of people who are critical of Vegan Camp Out, he says that they're reasonable about it and they do try to come up with solutions. It's just that their solutions are often naive, just like mine was just before about buying land.
Yeah, it's unfortunate with any movement. Obviously, it's the small, loud majority are the ones that get their voices heard over everybody else, and unfortunately, that's, you know, the things that are being spread more than other things, which is unfortunate. And you know, I kind of hope those people can at least get a bit of understanding, just knowing that, like I said, they did try their very best. That from standards of Vegan Camp Out so far, this is the best venue they've had. No money goes to shooting. No money goes to the farming. From what I know, no money goes to the fishing. They're not funding any of those things. It happens on the same land, but they're not funding it. And I think that's important because it goes back to that idea of, you know, whether is shooting worse than the eating of meat. I mean, they hold weddings, like how many animals are getting killed for the weddings, but we're not holding that to the same standards. So, you know, we've just got to realize that it's where the money goes that's important. And I realize it's emotional.
I want to touch on that because I know that if, as they said, the Stanford Hall or whatever it's called said, oh, you know, like we're going to ban hunting or something, and now if after the camp out is it
well, they have they've banned fox hunting from the land.
Yeah. If they turn around afterwards, and this, I know this is a bit of rhetorical, but go with this because this could be a real situation. I want to pinpoint the inconsistencies we've got in the movement here, because if Stanford Hall turned around afterwards and said, oh, do you know what, we want the vegan camp out, we really value your presence. I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to stop the shooting parties. We're going to have anything more to do with the shooting. We're going to build our wedding business. And everybody go, wicked, what a victory. Well done, Camp Out. You know, they ban the shooting, they ban the hunting. And then the wedding people, they turn around and go, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to sort of specialise in medieval banquets who grow this. And our USP is going to be pheasant, partridge, maybe the odd swan nicked off the crown, and put on a plate and served up. And they're going to go next door and shoot them on the next door estate. And guess what? Suddenly, oh, well, that's not a victory anymore. But the point is here, and this is where I come down to this moral baseline, and that's the value of this abolitionist approach. Is we're ending the use of all animals. We recognise the inherent moral value of all animals. And the whole point of veganism is to attend to all of these, not to address single issues like a sieve, where we're currently going around trying to stop shooting and stop hunting and stop fishing and stop this, that, and the other. It's like, no, you turn it off at the source. You turn the tap off, and then you stop the oppression. You have to get to the source. And that's why the vegan abolitionist approach is so valuable, because it underlines that fact that it's all animals have a moral hand. And we would get away with it. We wouldn't have all this nonsense done with us, because we would recognise that all we're doing is shifting the problem sideways. And so it may be a victory for humans, but it's no victory for animals. And all it does is trashes good things like the camp out. They're doing their best.
I'd like to add something in. I'd like to add something which I think will go in the direction.
Shooting ourselves in the foot.
I don't know if you can hear me.
To pun.
Okay. Look,
Roger,
we're
one last thing, if possible.
In fact, we're over time now.
Go on, Chris.
Tim,
Roger, add one thing which is more online with what
said.
you want to talk about, if that's possible.
Hang on a second, Chris.
Okay.
Let me regard what you've just said, Tim, as your closing statement. I want to give the chance for Ronnie and Chris to say the same, and then we'll say goodbye because we're over time. But you said your piece. So, Ronnie, do you want to just say a couple of minutes? Final thoughts.
Well, my hopes is that wherever Camp Out is held next year, that it will be somewhere less controversial and we won't have all this again. Let's hope. Whether or not, I don't know whether it's contracted to be held at Stanford Hall for more than this year or not. I don't know anything about that. But I kind of reiterate, in a sense, the importance of localism, about people getting active in their local areas, about non-active vegans becoming active vegans becoming local organised. This is absolutely vital if we're going to ever achieve animal liberation. And, we're talking about people who care passionately about other animals. The only way of being a vegan is for animal liberation. There isn't any other form of veganism, otherwise it's not veganism. We have people who care passionately about other animals, want them to be liberated. That isn't going to happen by magic. It isn't going to happen because you don't consume animal products when so many other people continue to do so. So it's vitally important, and hopefully a lot of people are listening to this, and either on the live stream or when it's shared. What I'd say is to all vegans out there, do what you can to spread the vegan message. Do what you can to become involved in outreach and to organise outreach. And if enough of us do that, then we can achieve animal liberation.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Well said. And the last word to our special guest, Chris. You're muted, mate.
Yeah, just needed to unmute myself. Yeah, so I guess as my closing statements, I'd like to, again, try and get people to, everyone to kind of calm down about this situation and realise that these organisers have not gone and purposely chosen somewhere. They've gone and got the best place that they could find. And like I say, it's the place that gives the least money to the animals, which is the most important. And we need to be consistent. Ultimately, shooting is no different to the serving of meat or anything like that. If we had a vegan market on a bit of land where they had donkey rides, are we going to cancel the vegan market because the donkey rides? Of course not. We need vegan events. Ultimately, they take up an event spot as well. They actually take up a spot where some other unethical thing could be there. And who knows? The estate's already dropped hunting. Maybe if everyone supports vegan camp out, the shooting could be next. Who knows? Maybe we can push them forwards to be a more ethical venue all round. And obviously that's what I hope. I really don't think the organisers deserve the amount of hate and vitriol that's been put to them. We do need to think these are real people. Everyone could be a bit of a keyboard warrior. I'm guilty of it myself sometimes, but we do need to remember that people are affected by these things. And also, which kind of goes along where Roger was kind of going towards about, the longer term impacts of this. all that's going to happen if this keeps happening is every single vegan event is going to get picked to shreds. Everyone's going to try and find fault. Everyone's going to be like, well, you can't have it there because they had this sale last week. We can't have it there. And then we're going to be stuck and we're going to be, well, we can't hold anything except if it's on like a small sanctuary or something. And, you know, that whole impact that these events could have is going to die out. So, yeah, please just try and be understanding.
Individual vegan houses, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that means the fact. Or, you know, if someone wants to do a crowdfunder for a massive piece of land, go for it. Raise 10 million, and everyone's happy, and we can all move on. But yeah, I'd also like to echo obviously Ronnie's statement there. Of, yeah, you know, we need more activists and everything. Go out there. If you do go to Vegan Camp Out, go to the activism tents. Go check out the talks. Get active afterwards. Go and have a great time. And afterwards, remember how important it is that, you know, Vegan Camp Out exists, because we're trying to fight the oppression of animals, and you can help beyond just going to a festival with your friends for a weekend, and go out and get active and do something for the animals. And yeah, hopefully that leaves it on a nice positive note.
Okay, thank you for that, Chris. My final statement is that I'm not very good at this bloody job, and I'm not sure if I'll be doing it again. But thanks to everybody for your contributions, and I hope that, you know, maybe if we watch this back, there may be something that we can all get from it. So I'm hoping that at least. So this is us saying goodbye. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you all again. So bye for now.